questions now, then we can proceed to the next lecture, and that is by Dr. Abhishek. Abhishek is going to talk on BRCA mutated patient, I mean, hormone positive, BRCA positive, PARP inhibitor. I think that's the topic, no, Abhishek?
Yeah, yeah. Somebody needs to. I think Chintan, you need to stop sharing.
I think I've stopped. It stopped
Somebody.
from my side.
Yeah, okay, okay, okay.
So, PARP inhibitor in hormone positive breast cancer. That's the topic Abhishek is going
It's
to cover.
actually PARP inhibitors in breast cancer.
Okay, not hormone positive.
So it's everything.
It's everything, TNBC and all BRCA positive.
BRCA positive. So thank you everyone for joining. Let us quickly go through the slides which I have prepared, which basically have been prepared. So BRCA mutation prevalence in unselected breast cancer population. You can see there are these are the several studies which we have which are there across the world. These are unselected populations, but if you can see from 2% to 12% is the average rate of mutation. Rough, it is about 5% patients of breast cancer are basically BRCA mutated. Prevalence, obviously, we know that it increases with a family history of breast or an ovarian cancer, or so from 5% it might go up to as high as 24% in those who are first degree relatives less younger age with breast or ovarian cancer. Obviously, a higher proportion of TNBCs are having a BRCA mutation. So you can see from the left hand side that TNBC patients have roughly 17% have BRCA mutations, and hormone receptor positive about 6% of the patients have BRCA mutations. But interesting fact is, if you see this slide, the blue ones are the TNBC population, the pink ones are the hormone receptor positive and HER2 negative population. So hormone receptor positive breast cancer is the major bulk of the breast cancer. So even if the incidence is low, the actual volume of BRCA mutation should be high. That is what this slide is trying to tell you. TNBC is like less than a third of the breast cancer. So there is a good volume of BRCA mutations in TNBC, but there could be an equally good volume in hormone receptor positive breast cancers as well. What about prevalence in those patients who are ERPR low? We generally tend to have now the percentage of ERPR given to us. So this slide tells you that you can see from the ERPR negative and the pink bar is ERPR low. So it's let's say 1 to 10%, and the prevalence is quite high even in the ERPR low patients, which is BRCA mutations compared to the high. These are the NCCN recommendations for BRCA testing and hereditary breast cancer. So why this slide was put is basically used to do BRCA mutations to look for hereditary component of the breast cancer. The last bar in this, the biggest one of this, is the one which you need to stress. So indications of testing have now changed. Any age as an aid to systemic treatment decision making for using PARP inhibitors in the metastatic setting. So irrespective of it is negative, positive, you should be doing a BRCA testing as an aid to adjuvant treatment decision making in hormone receptor positive and HER2 negative high risk breast cancer, obviously in TNBC and personal family history, male breast cancer, and people with high risk ethnicity. These indications were always there, but the three indications which have been added is one is adjuvant high risk hormone receptor, TNBC, and obviously metastatic setting irrespective of whatever we do. So what about the data we have for PARP inhibitors in advanced breast cancer? So this is the Olympiad trial where you can see HER2 negative metastatic and hormone receptor positive breast cancer as well as TNBC. Germline BRCA mutations were there, and they were obviously, and the standard treatments had been used at less than equal to 2 chemotherapy lines in the metastatic settings, and they were randomized to olaparib versus physician choice chemotherapy. What is interesting was the PFS was good. The olaparib arm showed a 42% reduction in the risk of progression or death compared to the physician's choice chemotherapy. You can see from the right hand side that the PFS at 6 months, 12 months was better in the olaparib arm compared to the physician choice arm, but it did not show any great overall survival advantage. So the overall survival was roughly the same. There was a PFS advantage. What about the other one? This is the other PARP inhibitor, which is talazoparib. Again, this was the phase 3 trial conducted in HER2 negative and hormone receptor positive MBC with germline BRCA1 and 2 mutations. Talazoparib was compared with physician's choice chemotherapy. Again, there was a PFS advantage. The median PFS was 8.6 compared to 5.6 months. So the PFS advantage was there in the metastatic setting. And nothing, overall survival was not significantly improved compared with chemotherapy. So there is definitely a PFS advantage in patients who have mutated BRCA. And the side effect profile is obviously what we know. Hematological toxicities and nausea, alopecia, lot of fatigue, asthenia is there with PARP inhibitor. So the standard side effects were there. Although this slide tends to give you an idea that olaparib was better than dalazoparib, but the standard side effects were there irrespective of the PARP inhibitor. This is the last trial we had in metastatic setting where velaparib was combined with carbopecli compared to placebo in a phase 3 trial, the Brocade 3, which showed a PFS. Again, there was a PFS advantage at 24 and 36 months. You can see the separation of the curves, that 24-month PFS was 34 compared to 20%, and 36 months it was 26 versus 11%. PFS assessed by the independent review committee showed that velaparib definitely improved the PFS from 13 to 19 months. So all these trials showed you that PFS advantage was there to addition of PARP inhibitors in germline mutated patients. These are the ESMO guidelines for metastatic breast cancer hormone receptor positive. And if you can see through the guideline, the first line, obviously we have the cell cycle inhibitors together with the AIs and fulvestrant. Obviously, if you have an imminent organ failure, you need to use chemo. That is a known. And in the second line on progression, there is an option of using, you continue with the cell cycle inhibitor, change the hormone. You have the option of using an everolimus exemestane, and you have an option of using a PIK3 inhibitor. And there is an option, fourth option now, if the germline BRCA is mutated, as well as the PARP2. I'll come to it in the last slide. You have an option of using a PARP inhibitor, providing you are not looking at somebody who had a risk of organ failure. Obviously, in that case, you would be using chemotherapy. So somatic mutation testing from tissue or liquid and germline testing for BRCA1, 2 plus PARP2 should be done in most of the patients, which is what this slide tends to highlight. This is hormone receptor positive, and the hormone receptor negative also. Again, I think I missed that slide in hormone receptor negative, but in hormone receptor negative, you need to do the mutations on day 1. So you have the PDL1, you have the BRCA mutations, and you decide the treatment accordingly. If this patient is BRCA mutated, you can offer, if there is no organ failure, you can offer him a PARP inhibitors upfront in the metastatic setting. So what about early breast cancer, which was possibly the main highlight of this talk? So patients with BRCA mutated breast cancer have a distinct tumor profile. They tend to be diagnosed at a younger age. They have a higher incidence of higher grade tumors, more CNS mets, more contralateral disease, and patients are at definitely higher risk of recurrence. We know that. This was the phase 3 study in the adjuvant setting. So you can see germline BRCA1 and 2 mutation positive, stage 2 and 3 breast cancer, HER2 negative. They had completed their adjuvant or their new adjuvant. So there was a new adjuvant group. You can see from the blue bars, there was a new adjuvant group. And new adjuvant group, the way they decided is if the patient did not have a PCR, and the adjuvant group, the way they decided is high risk, which is like T2 or more, and more than 4 node positive patients. All of these were randomized to either olaparib or placebo, and that was given for 1 year. And the key events were that you can see from these graphs. It briefly demonstrates that over a period of, let's say, 3.5 to 4 years, the invasive disease-free survival in the olaparib group, you can see the invasive disease-free survival HR is 0.58, and olaparib, the 3-year IDFS rate was 85.9% compared to 77% with placebo. So there was a difference of 8.8%. You can see from this forest plot that hormone receptor positive or TNBC. So the TNBC guys had definitely a better advantage, but the hormone receptor guys were also responding. The platinum, no platinum did not make a difference, but definitely no platinum was better. And most of these patients, BRCA1 and 2, they were responding well, or they had an advantage compared to no use of PARP inhibitors. So across, it was favoring use of the olaparib in these trials. Again, the secondary endpoint was distant disease-free survival at 3 years. You can see the HR is 0.57. The 3-year distant disease-free survival rate was 87.5% for olaparib compared to 80.4% for the placebo group. The difference was about 7%, and it is statistically significant. So at the side effect, again, I won't go through the details, but practically what you would expect from a PARP inhibitor, from nausea, fatigue, anemia, thrombocytopenia, neutropenia, all of these side effects are standard to a PARP inhibitor. Anemia was only one which was significant in more than 5% of the population. So what they tend to say, it was manageable, although the side effect was there. It was not very disconcerting. So what was the implication of this trial? The implication was that identify germline BRCA1 and 2 carriers with early stage breast cancer as well. So you need to identify these patients with germline BRCA1, 2. Genetic testing is necessary to make treatment decisions, not just to manage future cancer risk, which is what we used to do. And less than 50% of the breast cancer who qualify for the NCCN criteria are being offered genetic testing. Again, I agree with that. We need to do the testing more, so that you need to offer these patients PARP inhibitors if they deserve it. So these are the 2021 updated recommendation. The updated recommendation in June 21 suggested for patients with early stage HER2 negative breast cancer with a high risk of recurrence and germline BRCA1, 2 pathogenic or likely pathogenic variants, 1 year of adjuvant olaparib should be offered after completion of neoadjuvant chemotherapy and local treatment, including radiation. For those who had surgery first, adjuvant olaparib is recommended for patients with TNBC, and if tumor size more than 2 or axillary lymph nodes are involved. So those are the hormone positive ones. For those with the hormone receptor positive disease, adjuvant olaparib is recommended for those who at least 4 axillary lymph nodes are involved. For patients who had the neoadjuvant chemotherapy, adjuvant olaparib is recommended for patients with TNBC and any residual breast cancer. And for patients with hormone receptor positive disease, adjuvant olaparib is recommended for patients with residual disease and an estrogen receptor positive and a tumor grade, which is a CSP-EG score of greater than 3. So this is the last recommendation we have on PARP inhibitors in hormone positive and triple negative breast cancers. What is the future? Obviously, they are trying to improve on what we have already achieved by combining PARP inhibitors with immunotherapy, combining PARP inhibitors with a lot of other targeted therapies which are available. And most important would be, just like prostate and ovary, we need to find out whether it is only BRCA1 and 2 or it is the entire HRR panel, which is or the HR related genes which could be the target of PARP inhibitors. We know from ovary and prostate that it does work in other mutations as well, may not work in all of them. Even in breast, if you can see from the left, metastatic breast, already they have data that the olaparib expanded study showed that in the PALB mutated patients, the overall response rate was 82%. And in the somatic BRCA, we looked at the trials which had only germline BRCA. The somatic BRCA1 and 2 had a 50% overall response rate. So already you have 2 more. They recommend PALB2, and already you have another 2 targets which could be used for using PARP inhibitors in adjuvant as well as in metastatic setting in breast cancer. So if you have to summarize, PARP inhibitors are a welcome addition to the treatment arsenal for patients with locally advanced and metastatic germline mutated HER2 negative breast cancer. The safety as well as the quality of life profiles are favorable, and the most common AEs we know are generally manageable and can be monitored regularly. New directions would be to use them in earlier stages of breast cancer and in combination with other targeted agents, as well as the targeting the other HRR pathway genes. So that is the summary of the talk, and thank you very much for your patient listening. So
thank you. Thank you, Abhishek.
It was very fast. I thought we had eminent speakers who needed to speak. So
no, you have covered it. You have covered it well. So now we have one more drug in the armamentarium for breast cancer, right from adjuvant to metastatic disease.
So we should be using it. Chirag sir, you have any comments?
So Abhishek, I have 2 quick questions. For which I didn't find the answer. If you could please let everyone know. The first is that the benefit in Olympia study, whether it was irrespective of use of cisplatinum or any platinum, in adjuvant or neoadjuvant treatment, or those patients who treated with platinum did not benefit? That is first question.
It was irrespective.
Okay.
The forest plot suggested benefit in both, although it was much more in people who had not used platinum.
And the second question is that if for triple negative patients, if we use neoadjuvant chemotherapy, if there was no PCR, then whether it has been compared with capecitabine or it is irrespective of capecitabine?
It has not been compared with capecitabine. You might correct me, but I don't think it has been compared with capecitabine.
Then I will. So you will use either olaparib or capecitabine.
So, sir, before we left Vedant today evening, I knew this question was going to come, and I'm showing the slides to Talati sir. So, if you see the TNBC subset, no PCR, BRCA mutated, you go for PARP inhibitors. If you have a lot of money, you go for pembrolizumab, and if you are a poor guy like an Indian, you go for capecitabine.
So for my patient, it will be capecitabine.
So, I said, if you are a poor Indian, you go for capecitabine.
All right.
So that is what we were. I showed, sir. We were looking at. You remember we had talked to Hudisk about 6 months back, and he had suggested neoadjuvant pembro and adjuvant pembro. And we were wondering what's going on. So it's already there in the guideline.
Okay.
Oh, interesting. I don't think there will be any study comparing all these three modalities.
Yeah, difficult.
Yeah, that's good.